All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. Hello, everybody. Rough day for the market, rough day for Bitcoin, rough day for the Bitcoin miners, rough week. Hello, George.
Hey, buddy. Hello, everyone.
And hello to all the members. I see a bunch of members in the chat, so hello to everybody.
Now it's raining. Unbelievable.
Welcome aboard. If you guys could, sorry, as usual, I'm starting a few minutes late. If everybody could do us a big favor, and why is my button not working? Well, if you could please smash the like button. It should be doing that right now, but it's not.
I tried to do it outside, but it looks like it's going to rain. It just started raining. That's kind of like how it goes, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. We have 8 likes, and my like button's not. That's what kind of day it is. The like button isn't even working. All right, I give up. So
I kind of feel like the Ravens do after last night's game.
Not good.
Did you not see what happened?
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, this was rough. This was brutal. Thank you, everybody. I see some likes coming in. Let's get some people in here. This was a brutal day. So let's smash the like button. Get some people on the stream. Let's talk about this. I will tell you, we'll talk it through, but this was not a good day mentally for me. This was very rough to watch. So, you know, we got a big data point this morning, and some weird stuff happened all day today. Obviously, by the end, you know, it all ended very poorly on the day. So we're going to go through that. We got another big data point coming out next week. Midway, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you very much for being a member. Midway has to say, I gave up on Riot after their operational update and this week and bought a lot more iron. Iron's market cap is looking very cheap now for a 20 exahash company and soon to be 30 exahash company. So I get it. I did not give up on Riot, but I understand. I will go through their operational report. I'm going to probably make some excuses, I'll say, for them, but I was not pleased with their operational report. I don't think it was a nightmare, but I get it. It was not at all what I was expecting. And so, and meanwhile, Iron, you know, we'll go through their operational report. Basically, all 12 of the Bitcoin miners we follow have now put out their monthly operational report for the month of August. Most of them came in as expected. Iron was the winner. We'll go to that chart later and take a look. By the numbers, and obviously there's a lot more than just the amount of Bitcoin that you mine in these operational reports, but you know, just in the amount of Bitcoin they mined, they had the biggest improvement month over month. In fact, they were the only one of the 12 Bitcoin miners that mined more in August than they did in July. The other 11 all went down. Some went down a bunch. So one of the main reasons for that, and we'll look at that chart in specific, one of the main reasons for that was on July 31st, it was a gigantic, a 10.5% increase in the network difficulty level. So, you know, it was an expectation that most of the Bitcoin miners were going to mine less. I have been saying I thought there were only 2 of the 12 that were going to mine more Bitcoin in August than they did in July. Well, it turns out there was only 1 out of the 12, and that 1 was Iron. The one that didn't was Riot. I'm going to use some fuzzy math to say that they did, but they didn't. So, I mean, it is what it is, but we'll look at that. We'll look at that in a bit. George,
I'm speechless right now, Tom. Did it finally close below the support line? Bitcoin?
So I'll go to the 1 day, and and the daily candle doesn't close for a while, but actually I'll go to the 15-minute. So on the 15-minute candle, we closed under this $53,500 line, which was my next line of support on our chart here. So obviously, you know, everybody's got their own 1,000 different charts and 1,000 different lines, but we were looking, if we were going to break to the downside, you know, we fought this line up here at 56,500. There was pretty much a big gap from there down to 53,500. And you can see once we broke this, we ran right to this. We're fighting this right now. And I don't know that we're going to win this battle. So we'll definitely talk more about that. But yes, we're at the line. We'll see if we close the daily candle. So if I go to the daily candles, we have not closed the daily candle below this line. So since we ran up back in February of this year, we have not had one single daily candle close below this line at 53,500. We are below that as we speak. So we might lose that today. Now, like I always talk about, one data point, you know, is not confirmation. So we would have to see, you know, if we close below this and then we open and close the next daily candle below this, then, you know, now I think we're starting to maybe head towards lower points. And I'm not saying that's where it's going, right? We haven't closed the daily candle yet. We'll see what happens. But right now, I mean, the mood out there is, to say it's not good, I think would be a ridiculous understatement. It is bad. The real Gary Gensler, thank you very much for the super chat, and thanks for being a member. He said, here for the war stories, I bought some iron. So we got a couple people saying that they bought iron. So let's do this for the first poll, because this, I would be interested to know. Just 1 second to type. I think everybody will be interested in this. So a really simple one. What'd you do in the market today? And I should have specified with your Bitcoin miners and your Bitcoin related investments. And I guess overall, what did you do? Because the market got destroyed today as well. We'll go through that. What were we buying this dip? Were we selling the dip? Were we just holding? You know, I will tell you, even if you just held today, I'll give you credit, because this day I can rest assured when the numbers settle, this was another day that flushed a massive amount of retail investors out of the market. So Sourmelon Gaming said, I'm getting pretty pissed off, not gonna lie. Still holding though. So that jumped out at me, and Chuck said, stay strong, Sour. And that's the bottom line. It's like I'm pretty sure most of us are getting a little pissed off right now. The next chart I'm going to go right to is the year to date for the Bitcoin miners, because this has just been, we are now more than 8 full months into a year. You know, the beginning of this year, we were off to the races with Bitcoin. The Bitcoin miners had a big jump, and, you know, it has just gone the other way. Let me find that. Let's go. We got some people in here now. I'm going to try something here real quickly and see if that. All right. So I give up. So smash the like button if you could. If you just got here, if you have not yet, if you could do us a big favor, smash the like button. It's that kind of day. The button is broken, so I can't put that up on the screen, but it does help the stream out in real time. Thank you very much. Let's go to the chart I was talking about. Okay, so that's not what I was talking about. So let's jump right to year to date. And then I'm going to get to what happened this week and last week. So year to date, unless you own Core Scientific and Wolf, and this week, nobody, the last 2 weeks, nobody was immune. All 12 of these Bitcoin miners, I believe, were down both weeks, and not just a little bit. We're going to look at this right in a row. We're going to look at these. So this is year to date. I mean, you can see Core Scientific is up nicely. Bitcoin now is only up 27% year to date. only. I mean, that is a very nice return, but that's not, I think 6 months ago, we were not thinking that in September, Bitcoin was going to be up 27% on the year. So it has been a rough 6 months since, mid-March when we hit just under $74,000. It's been a rough road since then. So TeraWulf is up 55% year to date. TeraWulf was one of the big ones down today, but you can see it's way ahead of the pack still. It's worth noting, so then you only have two of these Bitcoin miners outperforming Bitcoin. I mean, the theory with a Bitcoin miner is that it's going to outperform Bitcoin, at least on a multiple of 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be. Now, when Bitcoin's going sideways or when Bitcoin's going down, in the middle of all that, we had the halving. So there's been a lot going against. And I really think on top of all that, institutions are just driving these down. I think there's a lot of shorting of these stocks. Even on some gigantic down days, the volume has been average or low. So, the retail investors have abandoned ship, lost hope on these Bitcoin miners. I see my comment section is full of these. These stocks are garbage. The poo emoji, if you will, if I try and keep it clean for those who have kids watching. People are frustrated. They're sick of it. So the two I want to talk about next are Iron and CleanSpark. So 3 months ago, Iron and CleanSpark were the two best performing Bitcoin mining stocks, and it was not even close. 3 months ago, CleanSpark was the only Bitcoin mining stock in the green. It was up 50%. Everything else was in the red. So CleanSpark was a mile ahead of everybody else, and you can see what's happened since then. It's been decimated. Iron was up, significantly. At one point, Iron may have been a double this year. Now it's down year to date. So Iron's gotten taken out in a big way. But these are still in, first, second, and then there's Bitcoin third and fourth. And then it gets progressively worse from there. So Marathon is the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap by far. It is now down 43% on the year. Riot is down 59% on the year. It is in dead last by a mile. We did have one of our members just say that, they've given up. They switched out their Riot for Iron. I don't think they're alone. I understand. We're going to talk more about some stuff that's going on with Riot. And I got a series of very interesting comments that I want to see if you guys agree with regarding Riot. And one of the things that people have a big problem with Riot. Okay, the real Gary Gensler, thank you very much again for being a member and for a super chat. If you talk about your bills for 5 minutes, Bitcoin to the moon after Trump 2024 election, guarantee. Right. My only problem with that, it might be worth it, but if we talk about the bills for 5 minutes, we're going to have some angry people on here. It is funny. It's football season started again yesterday. I'm not going to talk for 5 minutes, but thank you, the real Gary Gensler. I have high hopes for the Bills, but that's probably delusional. Kansas City won last night like they always do. Until further notice, they just win. So that's all I'll say for now. I get to still be optimistic. Buffalo's 0 wins and 0 losses. So we haven't lost a game yet this year. I'll leave it at any other thoughts, George?
None.
George is silent today. You're stunned.
Oh, no, not really. I mean, no.
You're not stunned. You should take a minute, George. I'm surprised you have not jumped in here to.
Well, I find, Tom, that it's like rubbing salt in a wound. It's better just to be quiet. You know what I mean?
Well, then I'll speak on your behalf. George got completely out of the market ahead of all of this. And, a lot of people were saying that he was a madman or a flip-flopper or whatever the case may be. But this last 2 weeks, and I'm about to show you what happened this week and last week, George missed all of that. So, sometimes it's nice being on the sidelines. Now, I understand I don't do that. It's not for everybody. Trying to time things can be hit or miss. But, this was, congratulations, George. This was, you stepped.
It's still brutal to see, though. It's still, because you want to jump back in.
I know, and I know that George and I talk all the time, obviously, and I know that there have been times where he's had the itch, but I believe you've resisted. And
I did get into Bitfarms, but I got out real quick.
So you got in and out of Bitfarms.
I can just tell you this: I don't think the pain's over with yet. Personally, I think we got a little bit more down before we go up.
Well, I think the market agrees with you.
Not a ton. Not a ton. I'm not saying there's a ton left.
This is one of those moments where, we're going to look back and see, was this, the greatest buying opportunity of all time, or, is the next leg down? And this is the hardest part about, these short term. And you guys know I'm a year and a half into not really doing the short term prediction thing, because it's a fool's errand. And, I just feel like in the short term, if you're right, it's because you just so happen to be right. And, if you're wrong, the same thing. I've got a thesis and a theory for, my stocks that I hold that I still believe will play out over time, but guessing what's going to happen this week. I mean, who saw this coming? Well, yes, George did, and I'm sure some others did. Barry, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you for being a member. Much appreciated. Barry said, listen, it's really not that long ago that Bitcoin was 15K, and stocks like Bitfarms were under 40 cents. Relax. It will be okay in the end. And I think thank you, Barry, for that, because that's the zoom out scenario that it's just so brutally hard on days on like this. And this day's not a one-off. We're a couple of weeks into the miners in particular getting wrecked, and we're 6 months into Bitcoin going in the wrong direction. And that can feel exhausting. I'm exhausted, but Barry is right. I mean, in December of 2022, Bitcoin was $15,000 and Bitfarms was 40 cents and CleanSpark was $1.50, and everything's still up 2, 3, 4, 500% off of the bottom from the Bitcoin miner standpoint, even though that doesn't mean this is tough. And depending on when you got in, you could be down big. I still have some that I'm in the green on, but I have some that I'm, in particular, I will tell you, my marathon is now in the red, and my Riot is ridiculously red. So, those are tough positions for me. I was looking back. I mean, I have some Riot that I've been holding for a while that I bought at much, much higher numbers. Now, I did buy, I bought at both ends. My highest purchase was $37. My lowest purchase was in the 4s. And I've done everything in between with Riot. And, it's down. My Riot position is way down, and Riot's down 59% on the year. George, sorry, did I?
Yeah, 53,197.
Right now?
Yep.
All right, let's get back to the Bitcoin chart. Take a look. Yeah, we're hanging at 53. It's looking brutal. So we'll see where the daily candle closes. Clive, thank you very much, Clive, for the super chat, and thank you very much for being a member. Much appreciated. Clive said, capitalized on the market's downturn this week and took the opportunity to add 20 more positions. Wow. Acquired 10 contracts for CleanSpark at $7.50 strike and 10 contracts for Nvidia at $104 strike, both expiring January 2026. So I'm also, thank you, Clive, for letting us know those moves. Those are two that I've been looking at, not those exact strike points, but I did, my Nvidia, I didn't buy Nvidia yet. I said if it got down to 100, I was going to buy it, and we're going to take a look at it. Nvidia tanked today. Everything tanked today. Obviously not everything, but it was one of those days. But Clive took this week and it was a rough week in the market. The market was down. Most of the S&P was down almost 6%. I'm sorry, the NASDAQ was down almost 6% this week. The S&P, I think, was down almost 5%. The Russell was down 5 or 6%. I mean, this was a down week. Those are big numbers, right? When you're trading Bitcoin miners, it can be down 5% in 5 minutes, but for an index, 5%, 10% is considered a full correction for the market, 20%, and you're in a bear market. So to be down 5% in 1 week is a big move to the downside. Now, we were pretty close to or at all-time highs on the S&P and the NASDAQ, within the last couple of weeks. So, a 10% pullback would not be a shocker. Also, everyone thought September was going to be a disaster. For that reason, I was very skeptical, but I will tell you, we're only 6 days in, and so far, not going so well. So it's a long month. We'll see where the month ends, and I do think this is one of the ways they can bring the pain. Everybody was expecting a bad month, really, really punish the beginning of the month and drive all the retail investors out. And, I think, I still think that's on the table, but, this is tough, and it has not started well. So let's see. Trying the button again, but still failing. So if you guys could we're at 52 likes. We're going for 100 likes, and actually 200, but first 100. If you guys could do us a big favor and smash the like button, and I'd like to welcome everybody. I see we have some people here. I see some new names, and so welcome everybody. It was probably a tough week for most of you. I know it was a tough week for me. I just like to get on here and just say it because, that's just the reality. I was not, today I don't want to say I was a wreck, but I was just not a happy camper today. This was a day that just affected me. Sometimes it gets exhausting to the point where it starts to affect your, I don't want to say your life, but like I was feeling it today. and I'm sure I'm not alone, right? I was feeling it. This was not good. Especially since if you look, so these are the 15-minute candles. This candle right here, this is when the jobs report came out. So, this candle and this candle, that's a half an hour. So the initial reaction to the, the jobs report. So the initial reaction was, almost a 1.7% move to the upside for Bitcoin. The markets were moving up. Bitcoin was moving up. And then, as you can see, everything changed. And, once it broke down, it just, like I said, it just ran down to this next line of support, which we're fighting with on the 15-minute time frame. So, this is a very, very zoomed in time frame, so I wouldn't take too much away from this. To me, I look at where 4-hour candles close, I look at where 1-day candles close, and then I look for confirmation past that. But this is a super important line. If I go back out, and then I want to get back to the chart I was on before, which is what the Bitcoin miners did this week and last week. But I just want to reiterate, like, this white line right here, we candle wicked down on July 5th. So a couple of months ago, we candle wicked down to 53,500. On this chart, it was 10 cents lower than that. So we call it 53,500. That line held on a daily candle close. You see, the only time the panic on August 5th, we candle wicked all the way down to 49,000, but we still ran back up and closed above that just on the 1-day candle. So you got to go back to really before this, this leg up of the bull market. You got to go all the way back to February to have a daily candle that closed, below that. Back down here when we were kind of having a grouping. So there is some fairly decent support. This was a couple of weeks down at around 51,600 is where I have my line. So, to me, that's the next, if this doesn't hold up, that is the next thing that I would be looking for. And then obviously, this candle wick down to 49,000, it's possible we retest that. So I don't want to focus only on the lower numbers. We'll talk about targets on both ends, but clearly at the moment, we are moving to the downside. Let me just finish out. Let me go back here. And So this is year to date. I want to show you what happened this week to the Bitcoin miners. So I don't know that this is Friday over Friday. Let me make sure these are the right numbers. Yes. Okay. So this is Friday over Friday. Bitcoin was down 9% this week. So this was a rough week for Bitcoin. That's a bad week. But look at the Bitcoin miners. All 12 of them did worse than Bitcoin. Now, you would expect big moves down on a week where Bitcoin, Bitcoin had a brutal week, but the Bitcoin miners were down between 10 and 24%. CleanSpark was down 24%, BitDigital 23%, Cypher 23%. CleanSpark and Cypher actually had some news this week that we'll go through next that I think, that's one of the reasons they were, a little worse than average. But, Marathon was down 20% this week. Iron was down 19% this week. I mean, here, right in the middle was about 17%. BitDeer, Bitfarms, Hive. I mean, there was the big winners on the week was Core Scientific down 10%, Hut down 11%. So, and most of this was probably today. We'll take a look at what happened today. So that was this week, but the hard part is that's coming off of this week. So this was 2 weeks ago. So we already had a nightmare week 2 weeks ago. Bitcoin down 8%. 10 of the 12 Bitcoin miners underperforming that. So you have a week like this and you think, hey, that was a bad week. Maybe we're bottoming out and turn around. No, this horrendous week 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago led to this week. So this is back to it. So that's why I say this is not just, a bad Friday. This is 2 weeks, and this was a short trading week. So this in the US, this happened in 4 days. So, we are 2 weeks into the Bitcoin miners getting absolutely decimated, and it has been tough. So looking at the poll, what did you do in the market today? 46% said they bought, 45% said they held, and 9% sold. So a pretty even split between buy and hold, and we did have some people get out. And I will tell you that means this group is probably much, much better than the overall, basket of retail investors, because I would say, based on the price action, a lot more than 9% of retail investors were selling today.
Well, Tom, show the descending chart of Bitcoin. I think that was the whole reason I got out, by the way. We had higher lows, higher highs. We had higher lows.
Right. So you guys have
and that's still happening.
Yes. And, we're trading inside of a range. It looked like, for a while, it looked like we had, and you can see this flash crash down to 49,000. That's the daily candle that ran all the way up right to the bottom of where I have this line drawn. Obviously, these two lines are somewhat subjective. You could move them a tiny fraction in either direction, but, you get the picture here. This is clearly a descending wedge. And this is, we're 6 months into this. So to George's point, I've got these yellow spots. We have a lower high, and then you'll see a lower low. And, we're kind of moving to the top and the bottom inside of this range. Now, this time we didn't make it to the top of this range. We stopped and headed back, and we are virtually at the bottom. I mean, right now, if today closes just a few dollars lower, we're going to be touching this green line. We're just ever so slightly. And again, you could adjust this line. So we are essentially at the bottom of our trading range. But the question is, are we going to get another low? Even if it's a candle wick, are we going to get, sometime here, are we going to get something that goes, maybe down here? I don't think we are. I will just tell you, I don't think we are. I think this will hold. I don't know if we're going to retest this. If we do, I think it will hold. There was a lot of buying pressure on this day. So when we flash down to here, you can see we ran up huge from that. This is a big wick on the bottom. So I feel like that's going to hold. That is my personal opinion. Again, none of this is financial advice. We're just talking. And I'm telling you what I think.
Is that chart showing a daily close or 15 minutes?
This is the 1 day. So these are daily candle closes. So yeah, this is the, this is a little bit zoomed out. Now, the flip side of all of this, we hope, if we can break out of the top of this thing up here, which I have sitting somewhere in the 68, 68-ish, 68 to 68, 5 or 6. If we can break out of the top of this, this may end up being a gigantic bull flag. So, that could create the next giant move to the upside. But it's really hard on a day, like today and a 2 or 3 week period. This goes back to August 25th. So, the last couple of weeks, we peaked and we did not get back to the top of this line. And we are now testing the bottom of this line. So, ultimately, can we bounce off of the bottom and, work our way back up? At some point, we're going to break one side of this or the other. I believe we are still, in that consolidation period after the halving. We peaked a little high for, I think almost 100% because we got the Bitcoin ETFs, which put massive buying pressure. So we did have a run up. We got past the previous bull market's all-time high prior to the halving for the first time ever. So we may have gotten a little ahead of ourselves. I will tell you, I bought into the fact that, it was up from there. Not that we wouldn't have 10 or 20% pullbacks. This is the worst pullback we've had. I think we had 4 other pullbacks since the bottom. We double bottomed in November and December of 2022, at around 15.5, as one of our members pointed out earlier. And since then, it's pretty much been straight up. We had 4 pullbacks, all 4 of which were between 20 and 23%. This one is worse. This one from the top to the bottom here is around 33%. Now, we've had worse than this, a 50%. I don't even want to say these numbers, and I don't feel like that's what's in the cards, but you can find multiple 50% pullbacks inside of bull markets for Bitcoin. So I do believe we are still in a bull market. I don't think we're anywhere near the end of this run, although I'm going to ask people that because I hear a growing number of people think this bull cycle is over, and that was the high. But I mean, if you look at it versus previous bull markets, this 33% pullback is not unusual at all. We have, example after example. There's usually a multitude of these inside of the bull markets. And again, sometimes as much as 50 or 55% pullbacks. I really don't believe we're in store for that. That's my personal opinion. But if it happens, it will not be unprecedented. It has happened several times before in previous bull markets.
We're at the low for the day right now, 53.60.
Yeah, we're at 53. We're just on my chart. We're bouncing just above and below 53,000. We are touching the green line at the bottom of this. And again, it'll be where the daily candle closes. Will we get a daily candle close outside of this? And then if so, what I would look for is, do we start to see, daily candles open and close below the bottom of this? So candle wicking below this, or having one that closes below and the next one jumping back above. To me, that's not confirmation. You get outliers like that all the time inside of patterns like this. But if we start to see another move, then, I would go back to this chart and say, maybe this purple line's in play at 51,600. And let me just move this a little because, from there, obviously, we've got a point here at around 49,000, which would be retesting the lows from August 5th. And then I've got a line of support somewhere at around 48, a little bit above 48,000. So there's, 3 lines in the middle here that I think we could still find support at if we keep moving to the downside. And now we're accelerating to the downside. We're at 52,700.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so this is a big move to the downside. We will see where this goes. And then, if we break outside of this, we're 6 months into this. So if we break outside of this, we're going to have to look to see, can we quickly get back into this, or are we in a new trading range? So, you know, I think the weekend, and I think we're going to have to wait until Monday or Tuesday to really know the answer to this, because the other phenomenon that's going on is, you know, one of the main buyers of Bitcoin at this point is the ETFs, buyers or sellers. And I'm going to show you this week, they were selling. So on the weekends, obviously they're not trading. So the price action on the weekends can be misleading. We need to see what the ETFs do. So let's say we have a breakdown over the weekend. We need to see on Monday morning, do the ETFs come in and buy that up? Or do they leave it alone? In which case, you know, then we can confirm a daily close Monday would be my real confirmation in my mind that, if we're down, if we're down in this type of area, then at the end of Monday's candle, then I would say we have broken to the downside and we need to see if we can find support somewhere here or here or here. Otherwise, my next line is at 41,000. There's points in between, but that's the next very big line, in my opinion. And you can find, I did not think we'd be looking down here. So if we get down here, I'll look for some more potential lines of support. But I'm hoping we don't have to deal with any of that. We are down on this candle today. At this point, we're now down almost 6% on the day. So this is, this is a big candle. This is a big down day. But if you look, we've had a lot of big candles, red and green. I mean, this day was the panic day on Monday. That was a big red candle. A few days later, we had one of the biggest candles, and it was green. That was almost a 12% daily candle to the upside. That's probably one of the best daily candles, certainly in the last 4 years, maybe of all time for Bitcoin. But we've been getting big moves. The volatility is real. And, that's one of the main things we talk about on the channel all the time. I pound the table. This Bitcoin is very volatile. Cryptocurrency is very volatile. The Bitcoin miners are even more volatile. So this is very, very hard space to be in. I know a lot of you know that. I know a lot of you have been in this space for a long time. But if you're new or newer, this is what happens. And it is not fun.
I agree. It's not fun.
So let's end this poll. What did you do today? So about 92% either split between buying and holding, 8% sold. So this group held pretty strong. And again, I think that's much, much better than, the rest of the retail investment universe did based on what happened today. I'm going to jump to a couple of names we know. First, if we go look at the market, the S&P was down 1.7% today. The NASDAQ was down 2.55% today. The Russell was down 1.65% today. Crude oil is at $68. The Dow was down 1%. I do not look at the Dow. For those of you who look at that, I don't know what to do with the Dow. It's 30. It's such a small sample group. To me, this is a much, much less meaningful number than the S&P and the NASDAQ and the Russell. I think are much bigger sample groups, and they tell us bigger things. But we do know even these, particularly the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, are at this point very skewed towards, the Magnificent Seven, if you will. There's stocks with such gigantic market caps, one of which is Nvidia, and this market cap is shrinking. They are now at, this is hard to say it's shrinking, but they're now at $2.5 trillion market cap. They were over $3 trillion. They were only the third company in history to go over $3 trillion. Apple and Microsoft being the other two. So Nvidia's had a big pullback. It continued today down 4%. So a tough week for Nvidia. My price target was $100. It's at $103. I really told myself I was not going to miss this opportunity if it gets to 100, but the fear is real. I don't know if I will buy. It was my intention, and I may still, if I have the weekend to regroup and I get a chance at this at 100, I do think there's room to the upside on Nvidia. I just don't know. All right, welcome to Talkin Investing. I don't know how much worse it gets before it gets better, because even on, on the 3-month, we got this low at 98, and that's kind of where I was looking at. If we get to 100, we've retested recent lows, but, this was down at 75 back in April. Anyway, enough about Nvidia. Let's just keep our eye on Bitcoin. And Chuck, thank you for being a member. Chuck said, this is what's known as the shakedown. Debate next week and Fed in 2 weeks. Then it's off to Q4. $9,000 loan for my car. Bitfarms, 4,000 shares. Dip and rip. So I think that, a lot of people are expecting what Chuck just said, which is that, everybody under the sun, the consensus around September being a bad month, particularly in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, but even in the market overall, there was just absolute consensus. The ultimate optimist of all time, Tom Lee, if you know who he is, he came out this last week and said, I'm still, he still had to do the caveat. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be way up, but I would be concerned about the next 8 weeks. So I was really surprised to hear him, to have him capitulate and say that he's nervous about September. It just felt like overwhelming consensus, but so far, it is clearly playing out that way. But I think there's the same amount of consensus that the fourth quarter, October, November, December, are going to be great. So we'll see. Neither one of those things is set in stone. Just because the first 6 days of September so far have been bad doesn't mean we're going to finish in the red in September. Obviously we're starting off pretty viciously in the wrong direction, but it's a long month. And in the middle, next week we have CPI. So, we have CPI, which tends to move the markets. And then, like Chuck said, then we got the Fed, and we're going to get a rate cut. So we'll talk about that next. We're getting a rate cut, and the market today was, what's the right word? They were schizophrenic about what this rate cut was going to be, but somewhere in the middle of the day, it settled in to overwhelming consensus that it's going to be a 25 basis point rate cut. I'm going to go to this real quick and show you. Let me refresh and make sure this is where it ended.
You should probably get into the unemployment numbers a little bit, Tom.
Yes, I'm going to go straight from
interesting data points in there.
Yeah, I'll do a top level, and you can. I don't have the deep dive up here, but we'll definitely talk about that right after this, because that's what today was all about. Everything was about the job numbers today. This was fascinating to me. This is the CME watch tool for what the futures are pricing in as far as a rate cut goes. So you can see yesterday there was a 40% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut. Today ended at a 31% chance. For a lot of the day today, this was up between 50 and I saw it over 60% of a 50 basis point rate cut. So initially, and for a bunch of the day, the market was really leaning towards 50%. And then for whatever reason, it just reversed. And everybody seemed to settle in that, nope, it's going to be 25 basis points. And that's where it landed. So we'll just do a quick, we'll get to the jobs, and let me just do a quick poll, because we've got CPI next week. And then the week after that, we got the Fed for the first rate cut in 4 years. Since March of 2020 was the last time the Fed cut rates. 2 emergency rate cuts in March of 2020. And so that was, 4.5 years ago. Just a second to type.
If you haven't already, please hit the like button. I guess it could have been worse, Tom. We could have picked the EV sector.
That's about the only one, George. You found the one sector that did worse than this. I won't say half, but it's getting close to, more than a third of my EV watch list are companies that are now out of business. So you're right. That one is one of the only things that's.
We're fighting back to 53, Tom.
We got to fight the fight. Let's see if we can get to 53.5 by the end of this daily candle close. Okay, let's get this up here. So, what do we think the Fed's going to do in the September 18th meeting? This is what the futures think right here. 70% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut. What do you guys think? 25, 50? Are we going to get 0? I will tell you, the futures have had a 0% chance of that for the last full month. So, there is no one in the market that thinks that. But if you think that, you can vote for that. Are we going to get more than 50 basis points? I think both of those options, you can see. The futures have a 0% chance built in of either of those things happening. But you never know what the Fed does. And we don't know what, they're going to get one more data point. And, unless it's a disaster outlier data point, I think the Fed already knows what they're going to do, and they're not going to change their mind based on just one data point. Unless, like I said, unless it's some wild disaster.
Bill.
All right, so let's take a quick look back. So we got some green going. We're above 53,000, like George said. And so let's look at the jobs number. So this is what it was all about today. And I'm going to go through some top line. George did a deeper dive on this, some of the line items. But there's some interesting stuff, even top line here. August payrolls grew by a less than expected 142,000, but unemployment rate ticked down to 4.2%. So the 4.3% reading that we got in August, that was when that's when Bitcoin went down to $49,000. It flash crashed. The expectation was 4.1. It came in at 4.3. People were shocked and stunned and appalled. And to me, I feel like, 0.1%, these numbers get revised so dramatically that, to hit or miss by 0.1 or even 0.2% is way, way within the margin of error. And I'm going to show you that before I'm done reading what they have just here on this page. So non-farm payrolls expanded by 142,000 during August, up from 89,000 in July, and below the 161,000 consensus forecast. So forecast was 161. It came in 142. That means the job market is a little weaker than expected, but we're going to talk, there's more than just that. 4.2% unemployment. So the unemployment rate ticked down to 4.2%. That's only because we got a surprise 4.3. 4.2 was expected. And then they said, however, the real unemployment, the quote, real unemployment rate edged up to 7.9, its highest reading since October of 2021. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. The previous 2 months saw substantial downward revisions. So this is why it's a little bit of a joke to me that the market has such massive panic attacks when these reports come out. Because whatever this report says, it can get revised dramatically and almost always does. So, to put such stock in this report. So if you look, the previous 2 months saw, there's the word. The previous 2 months saw substantial downward revisions. So not only did we come in under consensus, but July was cut by 25,000, while June fell to 118,000, a downward revision of 61,000. So that's another 85,000 jobs that got erased. Well, we only added 142. Then we revised down, this 86,000. So, and all these numbers are going to get revised again next month. So I know people go ballistic over this. I will say it does seem like, the takeaway from this is trending downward. This was worse than expected, and it's worse than it even looks just from the headline because, these 25,000 revision to the downside, 61,000 revision to the downside. Now, the one thing they're hanging their hat on is average hourly earnings increased by 0.4% on the month and 3.8 from a year ago, both higher than the respective estimates, the 0.4 versus 0.3 and 3.8 versus 3.7. So that's a tiny little indicator that maybe there's still some inflationary worries. But I think, when I show you the expectations for next week's CPI numbers, I don't think the Fed's, I won't say they're not worried. I think they feel like all of that, not just the Fed, but the market feels like inflation, while brutal, right? We've already lived it. The inflation that happened doesn't go away. So, that's something everybody feels every time they go to the grocery store, etc. Just because it's coming down, meaning it's going up at a slower rate, doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, this thing peaked at 9%. I have sticker shock every time I buy something. That's just me. When I grocery shop, this is when it hits me. I grocery shop every week and I still have not mentally made the adjustment. I'm just shocked at the price of everything.
Well, at least your pay went up accordingly, Tom.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Let's see. Crypto Fever said, I don't care about any of... Oh, I don't know. He may be talking to somebody in the middle, so I don't want to get into somebody's conversation there. Crypto Fever said, okay, so I'll go to this one. No, it just looks like retail is selling their miners' bags at a loss. That's what this looks like. All caps, capitulation. So I'm on that page, and that doesn't mean it's over, right? We'll see. But it's over when it's over when you least expect it and when you're feeling the most pain. So that brings me to this. We are now in extreme fear. So this is the crypto fear and greed index. We moved from fear to extreme fear. We talked about this on the Tuesday live stream. We were in fear, and we talked about the fact that I expected to move into extreme fear, and here we are in extreme fear. So historically speaking, that doesn't mean today is the day. We can stay in extreme fear, but this is the period. This is what you want to see. This is a part of the bottoming out process. So not calling a bottom. I won't call a bottom. I won't call a top. I don't know what, tomorrow brings. But as we start to look at indicators, this getting the fear and greed getting into extreme fear is one of the things we kind of need to see to get out of this, 6-month funk that we are in. So if we go back to this, so on my green line, George, we just jumped. We're up to 53,300. So we're fighting to get back to 53.5. We'll see if that happens. That would be nice if that happened on the stream. We'll see. Too soon to tell. It would be nice if we get the daily candle close above that and that holds. We'll see, because that means this chart will have held. This is a real inflection point because we've got two different things. This descending wedge, we've tested the bottom of this multiple times, but it has held for 6 months. So we've got that. And then we've got this line, this white line on this chart at 53,500. This has held since February of 2024. We candlewick down to this in July. We candlewicked below this, but closed above it on August 5th, a month later. And today we are currently below this at the moment, but this daily candle hasn't closed. So we'll see what happens. So you can see this is kind of an inflection point. In my opinion, the weekends we have to discount a little because the ETFs are not in there buying and or selling. So the weekends can be misleading. By the end of the day, Monday, I think we'll have an indication as to whether or not these two, we're at two lines of support. Are they going to hold? And then obviously I'm hoping that they will hold. All right, so we're pretty close to what the CME Fed tool is. 59% think we're going to get a 25 basis point rate cut. 32% think we're going to get a 50. We do have 6% that think we're going to get none, and 3% that think we're going to get 0.5. So very close to what the market is pricing in. It really feels like when I read this report, and George, if you want to talk about some of the deeper dive stuff, you can, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. When I read this report, this was worse than expected. So that initial reaction to move towards a 50 basis point, I thought that was going to stick, but it didn't. But this is only one day, so we'll see where it shakes out. And again, we have a big data point next week, bigger than this typically is the CPI, and we'll see how that goes. And I just want to show you what people are expecting because this really surprises me. So if you look, last month we came in at 2.9. That was the lowest number. And if I go out to the 5-year, the last time we came in below that was March of 2021. We had a 3. We had another 3 in June, and then 2.9 last month. But if you look, consensus is at 2.6. So the consensus is expecting a big drop from last month. 2.6 would be, by far the best number we've had, and that's starting to get normalized. So the only worry that I have is, with that kind of expectation, it increases the probability of a miss, right? The bigger that move that's expected, the higher possibility is that we're going to miss. And is the market, so are we going to miss that and have another panic like we just did today? So that
interesting.
I'm
going to tell you something, Tom. With the unemployment number, people should really read into it. Go and research it, look at it. I don't think unemployment is really going to become a factor until after the election. I think after the election, we're going to get hammered with unemployment.
You think this number will jump?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Especially because everybody's rolling out AI last quarter of this year. And last quarter of this year is when AI is getting really implemented. And
we've seen a lot of headlines about planned layoffs coming. So I think you're probably right. This number is going to inch up. And, that's one of the main reasons the Fed's, quote, dual mandate is to keep inflation in check, right? Their target rate for inflation is 2%, and to keep, a healthy employment. So they've got to balance those two things. And, they have a limited amount of tools to do so. Obviously, the highest profile one is their rate hikes or cuts. So, we've clearly shifted. At one point, there was no contest. The jobs market actually seemed, a year ago, 2 years ago, the jobs market actually seemed overheated, and inflation was a nightmare. At one point, it was at 9%. Right? If we go back here, and I'm talking the CPI, June of 2022, this was at 9.1%. I mean, that was like, you got to go back like 40 years to get numbers like this. So this was a real outlier. This was spiraling. So, the Fed started talking higher for longer, if you remember that catchphrase. That was the catchphrase before that was, what was their little buzzword? Transitory. Inflation is just transitory. No worries. Nothing to see here. Well, that didn't play out. Things got much worse.
I think they said trans.
What? short for transitory.
Yeah, trans.
So again, this is like a 40-year high. This is not something that many people have ever seen in their investing career. So, we got a lot of rate hikes, and then, they held them for like a year. So people were expecting in November and December of 2023, there was like an 80% chance built in of a March 2024 rate cut. So you can see we're now in September. It's 6 months later. So they held, when they said higher for longer, they followed through on that. So at some point, you almost, whether you think he got this right or wrong, you got to take Jerome Powell at his word, because that's what he said he was going to do. And that is what he did. But with that said, the interest rates are down. We've got unemployment at 4.2%, which is still, that is considered normal. So this is not a number they're worried about, but these
isn't full employment under 5%?
4.5, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, I mean, these are very normal numbers. This has not spiraled out of control in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that these numbers are all missing, the jobs numbers are missing, unemployment ticked down month over month, but has gone up, and new jobs are going down. So if we get this, 2.6%, that's going to be a really good number. But I do worry that leaves a lot of margin for error to miss on this. And is the market going to panic again if we miss? And this is next Wednesday or next Friday?
What?
This is next Wednesday. The CPI data.
Oh, CPI.
So, next Wednesday, we got another day here where something could happen in the market and with Bitcoin. In the meantime, let's check in on Bitcoin. 53,300.
My hold.
Local bottom was 52,530. So we're up like $800 in the last 15 minutes off of a local bottom. Let's see if that bottom holds. We don't know. Obviously, it's a long weekend.
It's a short weekend.
Well, it's a regular, you're right. It's a regular weekend, just like it's the same as all the other weekends. So we haven't really talked about, there's some stuff that went on with the Bitcoin miners that CleanSpark had some news this week that people seem to really freak out about. I did not freak out that much about it, but let's talk about it. This. Okay, so CleanSpark is going to have a special meeting, and the purpose of that meeting is to increase their number of authorized shares from the current 300 million. Again, this is authorized, not issued. So this is not a vote on stock dilution. This is not an at-the-market offering. This is simply saying right now, as a company, they are allowed to issue 300 million shares, and that's all they're authorized to do. Well, they want to raise that to 600 million. They want to double that. So, if you follow the bouncing ball, the next logical step is that means there's more dilution ahead. There's more at-the-market offerings ahead. They were at 225 million shares outstanding as of June 30th. They've used, I don't know how much of their shelf offering subsequent to that. So, they still have some room, but this is a company that has huge growth plans, as do several of the Bitcoin miners. They're hodling 99% of the Bitcoin they mine, somewhere between 99% and 100%, really for the last 12 months in a row. So, it looks like they are going to continue to dilute. So I know that really bothers a lot of shareholders. That is something that people don't like at all, stock dilution. And unfortunately, inside of this space, it's the name of the game. And really, to me, it's a race. Are you getting your money's worth? Are you growing your business? Are you growing your infrastructure? Are you growing your exahash as a percentage? Are you growing that faster than you're diluting your shares? And you know, are you replacing your fleet? Are you increasing your efficiency? All those things are what you're expecting them to do with all of this money that they're getting with new shares that they issue, right? If they're not doing that, then you're not getting your money's worth. And then these, you know, one would say potentially these are not good investments. You know, if they're not getting their money's worth. That's my analysis that I do on that, to really oversimplify it. Obviously, there's an awful lot to look at with these companies and all the different things that, you know, efficiency, overhead, growth, etc. But CleanSpark. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just thinking of some guy that had a moving company. It was out of Ohio. Do you remember that guy? I just haven't seen him in a long time.
Oh, one of our members?
Yeah.
It's
just, if you're on, just say something. Sorry.
And Alexander said, tonight we drink, for tomorrow we dine in the poorhouse. Not yet. Not so fast, Alexander. Let's see what happens. And I see Gary saying, CleanSpark has to stop announcing things on Friday of a long weekend. So that's really when they announced this. After the market closed on Friday of a 3-day weekend here in the U.S., this is what so many companies drop news when the market closes on Friday. I don't know who they think they're fooling. It never fools anybody. Monday, CleanSpark was down. Sorry, not Monday. Monday in the U.S., the market was closed. Tuesday, CleanSpark was down almost 16%. Now, everybody got decimated on Tuesday, but CleanSpark was the loser on the day, down almost 16%. So, you know, they didn't hide this from anybody, and people didn't like it. And
it's just, when does it end? I know what you're going to say.
The reality is it never ends. What you have to hope with these companies, and, you know, obviously right now, all of the market caps are heading in the wrong direction. The stock price is heading in the wrong direction. But, you know, in this bull run, these companies are trying to gear up. This is my opinion of what the companies that I think are going to succeed are doing. They're doubling down in this halving on creating infrastructure, not only for this halving, but getting ready for the next halving. And they're focusing on energy infrastructure, energy purchase agreements. And that's the important part of the, you know, that's turned in my opinion, to the bigger piece of this puzzle. In the last bull market, it was all about ordering machines. You know, machines were through the roof. They were 2 or 3 times as expensive per hash rate than they are today. And, you know, you had to do 50 or 100% deposits and wait 6 months or a year to even get them. That's where things were 4 years ago. Nobody, well, I won't say nobody, but a lot of companies, I'll use Marathon as an example, they didn't care about infrastructure. In fact, their business model they touted was, we are asset light. We're not creating infrastructure. We're going to set up Bitcoin mining machines. We're going to have more than anybody, and we're going to win that way. Well, they have shifted gears. They are now creating all of their own infrastructure. It's their intent to 100% reverse that and end up with all of their own infrastructure. And they are growing massively, despite the fact that their stock is getting destroyed.
I'll just tell you, I just looked at Shiba. Shiba got wrecked.
Well, let's take a first. I'm just going to take a peek. We're at 53,367. So I'm looking to get back to that 53,500. And then let's go over. Let's just take a quick look at the cryptocurrency universe.
Man, this is so hard, Tom. I just want to buy. I mean, they got destroyed. I made so much money off of Shiba.
Let's see what. Let me scroll down.
I mean, just destroyed.
Shiba is down 9% on the week. So it's not having a bad day today, according to this. Let me refresh. Do I have old information?
No, but if you look at it, look, I just, I pay attention to it all the time, but if you look at it,
Anything that has this many zeros, I cannot pay attention to. To me, this is such a joke. I don't understand why this is still a $7 billion market cap. I don't get it. I know, listen, for the people that are in it, there's people that this is their whole world, but I don't understand it at all. I'm talking specifically about Shiba Inu.
When does alt season come around? Did you read about Tether not going to be allowed to be traded in the United States because they won't submit to their audits?
Well, I didn't see anything about that this week, but we did see an article a few weeks ago that there's some rules they're creating in Europe that could create a conflict between, the what they need to do for Europe versus what they need to do for the US, and that there may be some legislature that comes out that, they would have to change and beef up their auditing procedures. So
like do one.
I think it was JP Morgan that put out the article we read. I don't know if it was members only or on the public Friday stream. We did read an article a couple weeks ago that, that is an issue out there. It's not an issue yet, but it's something that's looming. But look at this. Look at these other than so some of these you'll see are zero, but remember, these are stable coins. So, they're pegged. But other than the stable coins, I mean, this is an ugly list. Bitcoin down 9.6%, Ethereum down 12.9%, BNB 10%, Solana 9.7%, XRP almost 9%, Doge 10%. I mean, 7.6 Tron, Toncoin, TON. This is whose ecosystem is this? Down 15%.
Telegram.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was thinking of. They've been getting decimated. Cardano 10%. I mean, the cryptocurrency got wrecked. So we've been watching on Coin Market Cap. We've been bouncing off of $2 trillion. We haven't gone under that in a long, long time. So this week we now went under that. And there are a few different places you can get the overall global crypto market cap. So some of them have more coins than this, but $1.87 trillion here. We broke under. So that's a multiple, probably a 6-month low or longer. So, this has been a brutal 6 months. And it's been worse for the altcoins than it's been for Bitcoin. And Ethereum's now under $2,200. Ethereum's at like a 7-month. I want to go to the Ethereum chart. Ethereum's at I think a 7-month low or more.
Do you think that can 10x, Tom?
Ethereum?
Yeah.
I someday, or in this bull market?
In this bull market.
Ethereum, I that is way beyond the top of my Ethereum price target for this bull market.
220 billion.
Yeah, I
mean, no, sorry, that's not right.
Yeah, because Ethereum's got a big market cap right now.
They're 259 billion. We'll go
back to Ethereum's market cap right now is $263 billion. Bitcoin is still holding over $1 trillion. So it's holding on to that $1 trillion.
Dude, Bitcoin's flying. 53.15. I came back. 515. I think it will close above your number, by the way.
Well, it's no surprise that the bulls are making a run at this. We'll see if they succeed, but we're making a run to try and close a daily candle above this. We'll see. The fight is on, and I mean we're hanging right out at here. So we've got a couple more hours before this daily candle closes. So this could easily go either way. So we'll see if this holds. If we go to my other thing, where I have my lines, we now have a little breathing room to close above the bottom of this trading range, and we candle wick down to the bottom. So it is possible that this was a local bottom. Again, I'm not calling that. We've seen these candle wicks go way below. So we'll see what happens.
Polly, is unbelievable. It's 36 cents right now. It stayed at $1 forever.
Let me get a poll up and then I'll go back and take a quick look. So 25 basis point cut. That seems to be the consensus.
Casper got destroyed too. 13% in 7 days.
All right, so a quick one for Bitcoin. Will Bitcoin hold 53,500 over the weekend? To put it in perspective, hey, we're across. We're at 53,543. So we made a run back up at this line. Can we close this daily candle above this line and hold it this weekend? Are we going to drift below? And again, for me, confirmation will be the close of business Monday if it so happens that we are breaking to the downside over the weekend. Don't know the answer to that. Karen saying, I remember how painful it was when Mara was in the $4 range. Yeah, I mean, that's how bad these crypto winners get. And so let's go. Let me finish the Ethereum conversation. So we did candle wick below this point on August 5th, but from a daily candle close, the lowest daily candle close we had was at around, let's see, this one was at $2,343. And that was on August 7th. You got to go all the way back to February 7th to get below that. So, that's...
What was it? How many shares do they have to sell a day, CleanSpark, to keep their business open?
Oh, to pay the bills?
Yeah, it was insane.
It's yes, that is one way to look at it, because ultimately they are holding all their Bitcoin, so they're paying their bills with stock dilution. Now, they also have a lot of cash on their balance sheet. So, to a certain extent, hopefully, they will utilize that cash when their stock is getting beat up like this and back off of the stock dilution at these lows. But I'm sure they haven't backed down to zero.
It costs a lot for gas in a jet. It is
George is
amazing.
alluding to the fact that CleanSpark bought a jet.
It is amazing how much gas those suckers take. You can rip through 20 grand like nothing.
Yeah.
Now they have 270 per day for operations.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. There's going to be stock dilution, and they are not the only ones hodling all their Bitcoin. So let's just take a look. I'm going to switch gears for a second. Trying to see why I'm not remembering. I'm looking to see if Riot sold any of their Bitcoin, because they've been hodling. Okay. Oh, that's something totally different. Bitcoin production, Bitcoin held. So that, let's see, did that go up by the amount that they produced? 7. Sorry, guys, I'm doing the math. So their hodl position went up by 315, and they produced 322. So they did not hodl quite 100%, but essentially Riot's hodling very nearly 100%. Marathon, if I have their thing open, where's Marathon at? Marathon is hodling, well, I don't have to look. Marathon's hodling 100% of everything that they buy, or sorry, everything that they mine, and they're buying more past that. So that's what Marathon has been doing. And CleanSpark's been hodling. Let's see if I have CleanSparks open. I don't think I do, but CleanSpark, I'll go to the chart. We haven't gotten to this chart, so this is an important chart. All the Bitcoin miners have reported for the month of August. So this is not the deep dive, but a quick summary. Let's just take a look at what went on. So this is the 12 we're now following. 11 of the 12 month over month. So this is August versus July. 11 of the 12 were down. Now, we talked about this all month. That was my expectation. I expected 10 of the 12 to be down, and that is mainly because the difficulty level on July 31st went up 10.5%. A lot of these companies did not bring a massive amount of exahash online, enough to compensate for that. And so I did expect most of these companies to be red. Some companies did better than others. And there are two companies that are really, just from a numbers standpoint, just way out ahead of everybody. Marathon mined 673 Bitcoin. That was down only 3% month over month. So, that was kind of the best number. There were three companies, Marathon, CleanSpark, Hive, were down 3%. We'll talk about Iron. They were the only ones green on the month. So down 3% was a really good result. And you can see they added 3.4 exahash. They are at 35.2 exahash. Now, I will tell you guys, this is their amount. This is their nameplate exahash. That is not the average amount they had operating throughout the month. So these miners now report the total amount of machines they have, and then the average that were operating throughout the month. And I'll add that when I do my deep dive. I'll show you the difference between those two. And for a lot of them, there's a significant difference, none more so than Riot. Riot, so this was a part of the disappointment. And earlier in the stream, we had somebody who said they gave up on Riot, they sold their Riot, and they bought Iron. Well, if you look at the results, Riot mined 13% less Bitcoin this month than they did last month, and Iron mined 10% more Bitcoin than they did last month. Iron reported that they are now at 16 exahash. Now, that was their average monthly operational was nowhere near that number, but that's because they were getting a lot of it online, not because they had it turned off. So I expect next month their number to go up again. So they were the only one to have an improvement month over month on the number of Bitcoin mined. You'll see they're going to jump up from 6th place to 5th place. They'll jump Bitfarms, but Bitfarms had a really nice month as well. And then there's a big gap. So to get to Riot, they have 23.3 exahash. They averaged 14.5 over the course of the month. So that leaves 9 exahash unaccounted for. Now, they did get paid the equivalent of about 105 Bitcoin in energy credits. So they're in Texas. They participate in curtailment and they get paid for it. So at the beginning of the stream, I said I was going to do a little fuzzy math. And, if you count their energy credits, that was the Bitcoin equivalent of about 105 at a price of, I used a price of 60 or 61,000, which was the average for the month. So, this 322 would have been 422. But having said that, I expected them to, it wasn't an outlyingly huge, there was a month last year where they got paid $30 million in energy credits. They didn't get anywhere near that. If we look, sorry, that's the wrong Riot thing. They got paid $5.7 million plus another 0.7 in the demand response. So $6.4 million. That's up from 3.4 the previous month. If you look at this month last year, they got paid $28.5 million in energy credits. So, this wasn't some outlier. So I expected better numbers than this. This drop-off was a disappointment to me. Overall, it's probably not as bad as it seems. It was an okay month if you look at it month over month and you calculate in the energy credits. They probably performed like everybody else did. But the main reason I thought they would do better than this is you can see 23.5 exahash deployed, but average operational hash rate 14.5. Last month was 15.5. It did not take 9 exahash to generate these energy credits. So I just feel like, you know, I don't remember which member it was that said they sold everything and sold the Riot and got into iron. But, you know, this is probably one of the reasons. Like, they're just not getting that. They're not getting the efficiency that I'm expecting out of the exahash they're running, and they're not running a lot of their exahash. So this is a trend for them that continues. I did think they were starting to break that trend. If you look at Riot, in June, they were up month over month. They were up 19% in June. And then in July, they were up 45% month over month. So one of the things that might have been a hard target after 2 big increases, but I do think this is a little disappointing from my perspective. That's just my opinion. And I don't seem to be alone, because if we go back to the other chart and we go year to date, you'll see Riot is in dead last out of all the Bitcoin miners by far, down 59% year to date. I see somebody, S1231 SAA, asking me, do you still have CleanSpark? Do you believe it has higher to go? Is it a bad miner? So I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, but, you know, the answer is it a bad miner? You guys know you got to make up your own mind. There's a lot. These miners have different philosophies, and if you don't like their philosophy, you may not want to invest in them. They are all in on Bitcoin. They're not interested in high performance computing. They're not interested in AI. They are 100% in on Bitcoin. They're building out their infrastructure. They're looking to continue to compete to be in, you know, a top 3 Bitcoin miner by size. They're hodling all their Bitcoin. So that's their philosophy. I still have my CleanSpark. Yes. So that's me personally. So, you know, I'm sure some people have given up. Fortunately, the two that I bought the heaviest by far during the crypto winter were Bitfarms and CleanSpark. So I'm still way up on those two. And I said earlier in the stream, I'm way down on my Riot. I'm red on my Marathon. So, you know, I'm hit or miss. But my CleanSpark and it's a little easier to stomach. And it's not fun. I mean, I want to go to the CleanSpark, and there's a reason this person's asking this. Let's go to the CleanSpark. This is the 1 day. Back in March, and that was, you know, when Bitcoin was hitting its all-time high. To today's close, this stock's down 67% since March. That is very, very, very difficult to stomach, right? If you're an investor, that's a brutal run. You don't get this in very many stocks, but you also don't get the upside, because if we were to, you know, look at this the other way, this is the zoom out scenario, right? I did a lot of accumulating, you know, did the wrong thing. You know, here we go. There was a whole window of time to accumulate between, you know, CleanSpark was trading for $1.74 in December of 2022. So even if you go from September of 2022 until May of 2023, CleanSpark was trading between $1.74 and, you know, $3.75. So this is when I was buying a lot of CleanSpark and a lot of Bitfarms. So it's a lot easier to hold on when, you know, you're still up significantly. Having said that, you know, my portfolio is way down from where it was. It's paper losses because I haven't sold. So I have held my CleanSpark, but paper losses or not, you guys know it's hard. This feels like real money lost, and there's no guarantee that it's coming back. Now, I believe CleanSpark's going to be one of the winners. I think that we're in a period of time, I've been saying for the last couple of months, I just think until we break out of, I'm going to go back to this chart. So to me, we're in this descending wedge pattern. We're retesting the bottom of this. We're at, by the way, George, we're at 53,800 right now. So starting to look a little bit better for maybe closing above that line of support. We'll see. Not counting it yet. The day's not over. Sorry. So what I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 months, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What I've been saying for the last couple of months is I just think the Bitcoin miners are going to keep getting punished until we break out of the top of this range. And probably, until we break out from this 73,800 that we hit back in March. Until people are convinced, until enthusiasm comes back, and then FOMO will hit, right? Everybody's out. There's a lot of people talking about bull runs over, 74,000. That was it. We're done. And they might be right. I can't sit here and definitively say those people are wrong, but I believe we're going to break out of the top of this range at some point, and I don't know when that point is, right? They can keep this going. So, but at some point, and this is not unusual, 6 months sideways, we've had even longer periods than that. And we did have a insane, so I'm just going to do this too. Sorry. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit on the Bitcoin chart because it's important to remember, as somebody pointed out earlier, right? Oh, sorry. I got to zoom out a lot more. In the bottom, in November of 2022, to the top, we ran up 373%. So Bitcoin ran up 373%. Okay, we've pulled back 30%. That does not spell, to me, that does not spell the end of a bull market. Right? I mean, I'm not saying definitively that it's not the end, but look, here's a line that I drew. This was 217 days. Back in the middle of this bull run, that basically we went sideways. So, we've already had one of these. We're having another one right now, and they're awful. So it just depends on what you believe. I think we're trading inside of a range, and ultimately, I believe we'll break out of the top of this range and continue the rest of what is the normal Bitcoin 4-year cycle. And it's not just a 4-year cycle, because if you're just looking at a chart and saying, well, this is what it did in the past, past performances, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of reasons. The Bitcoin adoption is real. We're still in early stages. I can tell you from a recent experience, I have money in an account at one of the people that have a Bitcoin ETF. I wanted to buy their own ETF, and it threw 4 flags up at me that I had to click yes to go through. This is non-marginable. It was warning after warning after. I've never had to do that. I own BitX in that account, which is substantially higher risk than the Bitcoin ETF. And it's their own ETF. And still, I had to jump through. I mean, that's scaring a lot of people out. So they won't let you, they won't let you margin it. They won't even. So if you sell a stock and want to buy a new one, technically, if you're going to use that same money, that sale has to settle. So your broker usually will let you, they will let you buy the next stock. They won't, for their own ETF, they won't even let you do that. So in addition to that, it was, so my point is, and that's their own ETF. Imagine there's still massive money managers that won't let their customers buy their ETFs, any of the ETFs at all. So, we've got a lot of adoption. We have $17 billion of buying from the ETFs that exist. But to me, that is very, very, very early stages, right? I believe that the Bitcoin ETFs by the end of this bull market will not be at 17 billion. I think they're going to make a run at $100 billion. So And that buying pressure alone, and that's not the only buying pressure. We've got countries adopting, we have companies adopting, right? You guys know the list. So my point is, it's not just, oh, there's a 4-year cycle, it's time for Bitcoin to run. Because, that alone, I would not feel comfortable with. But that is another reason that, that's another indicator that, there's still more of the bull market ahead. I don't know if we lost George temporarily. I don't see him there. Okay, so we'll move on. We're at 53,884 right now. So I just want to go back to this one. So remember, I was looking for two things. Are we going to hold this line at 53,500? This line started here, but it goes back. We have not had a daily candle close below this line since February of 2024. So this is a very strong line of support, in my personal opinion. Even the day we candle wick down to 49,000, we still managed to make our way back above on that daily candle above this line. So we are having a strong test of this right now. And we got a couple hours left to see if this holds or not. And then we've got all weekend to see. So this is a big line I'm looking at. And this is a big line I'm looking at. And you can see, in this descending wedge pattern here, you can see we candle wicked right to the bottom of this line. At the moment, we're bouncing off of it, but we'll see if that holds. So, and we've tested this. I mean, we tested it here, we tested it here, we tested it here, and we got close here, we got close here. So this pattern's held up very, very strong. So I would like to see this hold, and then see if we can get the next move up. Let's take a look at our poll. And then there was another Bitcoin miner that had some big news that we still haven't even gotten to yet. Will Bitcoin hold 53,500 over the weekend? So this is very close, 55 to 45 in favor of yes, but very close to an absolute split on this one. So, and I get it because we're hanging out right at that. When I started this poll, we were $300 below that. We're $300 or $400 above it right now. So 50-50 kind of makes sense for this. It's hard to tell, so we'll see what happens. But those are the two main things I'm going to be looking for over the weekend. So Cleanspark wasn't the only one that had an announcement. Let me get to the other one.
Sorry.
Welcome back, George.
You want to know what? I bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin, and it wouldn't work being on the stream.
Oh, you had to get off the stream to buy the Bitcoin?
Yeah.
All right. George is back.
I just bought, nothing crazy.
What's nothing crazy? Well, you don't have to say.
It was crazy. It's crazy. I didn't go all the way in, but I went a sizable. I'm just going to do it again. Why not? See, Tom, anytime I listen to you, everything you say is rational to me. And I need to hear that rational thought process.
Well, but my disclaimer warning is sometimes the market doesn't act rationally.
I know, but what you're saying is we're inside a range. And if we have an opportunity to buy at the lowest of the range that it's been in for the last 6 months, why wouldn't you do it?
If you're a swing trader and you're timing the market, this is what people do. So you got out at the right time. So you called the top. Let's hope you called the bottom.
I'm not scared.
Let me get to what Edmund said, and then I want to talk about what Cypher did. So Edmund said, iron energy cost June 39,000, July 61,000, and there was a reason for that. August 29,900, really nice profit in August. So thanks for pointing that out, Edmund. That July number, it was about a month before. I don't think they did a good job communicating. That's my personal opinion. About a month later, they made it clear what the heck, or 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know what it was. They made it clear why. That was a big outlier. That number scared the heck out of me. And I hold iron. I held it. I've actually bought more since then. I bought more today, in fact. So it went down to 29,900. In the July number, they had some hedges on energy. So they managed to rework their energy purchase agreements. So they had to pay some penalties to get out of their energy hedges, and that crushed their July cost per coin. And if that said that in their July report, I sure didn't notice, but in something else they put out later, they talked at great length about that, and it made more sense. And then following that, the August report came out, and it was just in line with what they talked about. Their energy back down, now under $30,000. So I will tell you, I see comment after comment after comment. All the Bitcoin miners are not profitable. There's not one Bitcoin miner that's profitable. So, there's different ways of measuring that. I look at what I look at is so what some people may be doing is saying under GAAP, including all the non-cash items, depreciation is a big number. There may be some Bitcoin miners that are not profitable, but when Bitcoin is dipping like this, you need to realize, an energy cost of $30,000, Bitcoin's dipping down to $53,000. So for iron, they're still paying all of their direct costs, and that leaves enough money left over to pay all of their overhead, and it leaves some money left over for that. Now, so their EBITDA will still be positive. For GAAP purposes, are they losing money in the month of August? Maybe, but that's not what I look at when Bitcoin's in this part of the phase. So you extrapolate that out, if Bitcoin takes the run we're expecting it to, and that would be the only reason to be investing in these Bitcoin miners. If you don't think Bitcoin's going to run, then, this is not financial advice, but I would question, why would you be investing in a Bitcoin miner if you don't think Bitcoin is going to, hit higher highs? So my point is, a lot of the Bitcoin miners that we follow are cash flow positive, even right now at Bitcoin $53,000. So, there's a lot of FUD out there that, and it might be like I said, it might even be technically a true statement with GAAP, with depreciation and other, non-cash expenses. Maybe they're not profitable, but they're cash flow positive. They're generating cash on a monthly basis, especially somebody like Iron that sells all of their Bitcoin every month. They're literally paying all their bills and banking cash. Now, they have a lot of CapEx, so they're buying infrastructure. So thank you, Edmund, for pointing that out. And that gave me great comfort to see that number. And it's one of the reasons I did buy some iron today. I waited to the very end of the day and I bought a couple of things. So I was holding off and waiting, but I did, much like George was looking at, it seemed like we were very, very near the bottom of our range. And, even if it doesn't hold, to me as a long-term, buy and hold, I plan on averaging out, later in the cycle. So I'm still, if the opportunity presents, and I said this on the members only stream, if we get down to, I'm going to go back to this chart, if we get down to this 56,500 line, I'll do a little dollar cost averaging in, and I'm not going crazy because I have positions that are already, in my mind, full or beyond full. So I said I would do a little dollar cost averaging in if we hit here. And then if somehow we go down and test this, I would do some more. So I did that near the end of the day. And again, I'm just adding small amounts.
Well, I can tell you how confident I am that Bitcoin's going to take off. I am in the process of getting a refinance on a mortgage. So,
and you're going to
grab six figures. So I'm convinced. I think there's going to be a major pullback in the market still, and then I'm going to buy. Not just Bitcoin miners, but everything.
Harrison said that buy from George is really pumping Bitcoin.
Yes,
You called the bottom, George.
I got lucky. Well, I don't like to buy at the very, very, very bottom, by the way. I like to buy a little bit up from the bottom because you never really know what the bottom is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you wait until the exact moment that you're hoping and that you planned for, then, you know, you may miss. And if, especially, you know, for me, I'll show you another. Let's look at a few charts. Marathon. So I bought some Marathon yesterday because I had said back in this time frame, they candle wicked down to this red line that I've had on here forever. This was that, this gap back in December of 2023. So to me, this was a really strong line of support. We saw that even when there was a panic on August 5th, this line held. So I said, if it gets back to this line, I'm going to dollar cost average in. So I did that. Now today, we closed below this line. So you never know. So that's, to your point, George, I dollar cost average in here, and guess what? It went even lower. So, now I'm not going to buy here again, but if it goes substantially lower, I would love to be done buying. To be perfectly honest, how many buy the dips can we all do, right? I mean, this is getting beyond ridiculous. But to me, this Marathon at 1375, and again, Karen was pointing out, if you go back, to even March of 2023, Marathon was at $5, right? This got down to $5.13, and that was not the bottom. Marathon was at $3.11 in December of 2022. So, $13.37 seems awful, but that's still, and I understand we didn't all buy 100% of our shares on the day this bottomed, so I'm red on this. I'm red. But it's up 328% from the bottom.
My whole problem is $4 billion Marathon. And I don't know if that's really a $4 billion company.
Well, they have 25,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They're at 35 exahash. They're, I'm not going to make the case for them, but I do. Right. I own Marathon. I'm buying in. I understand why they're the largest market cap. And I think a lot of others, I expect a lot of Bitcoin miners to have a higher market cap than that before this cycle is over. So we'll see. Marathon spent a lot of money creating a lot of. If we go back to this, let's go back to this chart. I mean, this is everybody's August. 673 Bitcoin mined by Marathon. In second place, a distant second, is CleanSpark at 478. And they're in second by a mile. They're more than 100 ahead of Core Scientific. So, somebody asked me, is CleanSpark a good company? I mean, this is why I have confidence. It's not the only reason, Also, you need to be making money on mining this. So, there's a lot of variables, I understand. Your direct cost, your overhead, but, by this, this is the largest company by exahash with 35.2 exahash, and no one's even close. It's the largest company by number of Bitcoin mined per month. It's the largest company by HODL. They have 25,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and the next closest is 10,000. They have the second most Bitcoin on their balance sheet of any publicly traded company in the world. Now, it's a distant second. I think we all know who is in first, which is MicroStrategy. I did not buy them today. I almost considered buying some MicroStrategy today, but I did not do it. So what didn't we get to? There's a few other things. Okay, so let's talk about this. US Bitcoin ETFs hit 7-day losing streak. Outflows surpass $1 billion, $1 billion. So I pulled the chart here. Going back to August 27th, you'll see red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red days in a row. And these are not small red days. Yesterday was a $200 million outflow. That was Thursday. Tuesday was a $287 million outflow. 7 red days in a row, over $1 billion of outflow in those 7 days. So this is also a sign. If we look back, this has happened before. And, you know, I think there was a one period where 9 out of 10 days were red, and that did signal a low. The low was in on Bitcoin, and it had a big bounce after that. So we now have 7 days in a row. Of course, Monday, the market was closed in the U.S., so everything was zero. That day does not count. And I don't know if today is going to be red or not. I would guess that given the fact that today was a train wreck for Bitcoin, that today was day 8 of outflows. So that's 8 out of 8. The last time that we got a bottom, there was 9 out of 10 days where the ETFs had outflows. So this is what I'm saying. None of these things are a guarantee. There could be 14 days this time. Who knows? But it does show we're moving through a bottoming process, in my opinion. So I try to look for as many things as possible. Are we going to hold these lines of support? We're at extreme fear in the fear and greed index. We have, you know, I'm counting it early, but what I think is going to be now an 8th day in a row of outflows, and not little outflows, big outflows from the ETFs. So there's a lot of things signaling that maybe, at least in the short term, we're getting close to the end of the pain. Having said that, you know, Bitcoin has continued to be frustrating. You know, every time we've made these runs up, we made this big, you know, obviously it seemed like we were off to the races when we hit a new all-time high. And then we had a big pullback, and then we had a giant run back up, failed, pulled all the way back, had another giant run back up, failed. This time we didn't even get to the top of the range. So I don't know. There's no guarantees. And until we break out of this range, you know, until further notice, this is what's happening. We're at 53,900, George. Man, you might have called the bottom, my friend.
Hey, the only thing I know is you got to be in it to win it, Tom.
Well, you got out and you got back in at a much lower number. So, you know, however this goes, that worked out.
It just means I won't have to lose as much. I don't think it's the bottom, but I also have the DCA, and that's the key.
Yes.
I could be wrong, which most of the time I am.
Well, that's investing. 53,900. Let's see. Anything else, George? We didn't get into the marathon, the Bitfarms Riot thing. I'm not going to go through all that, but I will say Riot put out a letter. Bitfarms responded, and also they did. And I'll just show you this. So Bitfarms did
anything like Jason's poopy pants or anything like that?
Let's talk about this for just 2 or 3 minutes, because I do want to go through this. A lot happened this week with this. So Bitfarms put this out this week on September 3rd, and this is showing 19.9%. So Riot keeps buying their way back up to 19.9%. So as Bitfarms dilutes, Riot continues to buy up to this threshold. There's kind of a poison pill that, you know, if it holds up, kicks in at 20%. So they're sticking to this 19.9. So they're still all in. They bought more shares. They're at 19.9%. They sent out this scathing letter, which I will not read. Riot issues open letter to fellow Bitfarms shareholders ahead of upcoming special meeting. So, You guys can read that if you want. Essentially, they want to change out some board members, and ultimately, they want to buy Bitfarms. Bitfarms put this out a couple of days ago. Bitfarms issued a statement to address misleading claims from Riot. The quote, the upcoming special meeting is not about corporate governance, as Riot has repeatedly positioned it to be, but rather about Riot's attempting to acquire Bitfarms at a discounted price for the benefit of Riot shareholders, not Bitfarms shareholders. Riot has declined to engage with us constructively, including by refusing to enter into a standard non-disclosure agreement with Bitfarms. So they go on to air their grievances, point, counterpoint. I actually kind of agree with this, and I will tell you what, I was surprised. I put a question out on Twitter, or X now, I still call it Twitter, and the vast majority of comments, I basically put out, Riot's now under $7. Are we buying this dip, or is everybody done with Riot? The vast majority of those comments were people were angry at Riot for trying to buy Bitfarms. They felt they were wasting their time. They were wasting their money. It was dubious. It was not helping Riot. And so that was the majority of the responses that I got to that post. So I'm not saying that's how I feel, but that was the big response, was a lot of people were just outright pissed at Riot for all of this that's going on in this Bitfarms situation. So I was surprised by that.
So that means it's a time to buy.
Time to buy Riot.
Did you? Yeah.
Well, I'm still in my means. Riot. I mean, I'm in both of these. So, but having said that, I tend to agree more with Ben at Bitfarms. I don't understand what Riot's doing, but maybe they're playing a game that's over my head, or they have information I don't have. I don't know. This does not make sense to me. So I'm not sure where all this is going to end. But that's what happened.
A non-disclosure agreement that's not a common thing to sign, by the way. I mean, yes, people do sign it, but they sign them less than 50% of the time.
I mean, I don't know what their situation was, if they were in dealings for a buyout, and they wanted to take a look at the books. If they wanted to take a look at the books, and obviously I don't mean their financial statements, which are a matter of public record, but if they wanted deep dive information, then they should, in my opinion, they should have signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Well, but they already have the deep dive information, because the ex-CEO is talking to them. Okay. So most likely there's something in there accounting wise that is ugly, and that they don't want it to be known.
So I will just say
that's probably what it is.
That is George's opinion.
I'm just making, if you have a CEO of a company that leaves and was, forced out, right? He got
fired at the end of that. That's not, right. So I hear you. I was disappointed with how that unfolded. That was not right. That went from a helpful segue to a firing, for those who don't remember.
Right. Right. So when that happens, though, there's usually every company has something on their books that they're not proud of, that, you know what I mean? And they probably have something, and he knows it. And who knows if Jason wouldn't sign one, or if Ben now wouldn't sign one. You don't know. They're saying that. You just don't know. There could have been something in there that they didn't like the language of, and they wanted it removed. You see what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Maybe they could not agree on the language of the non-disclosure agreement. Right. We don't. We don't know. Right. We don't know, and that's right. My point. I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
What I do know doesn't make sense. So maybe there is some other thing. I think this is all going to end in not happening. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Who knows? But all I know is, Bitfarms has been getting beat up. If Riot sells their 20%, Bitfarms is going to get beat up again. And, it could cause them having other problems and they might get bought out by somebody else. Because if they dump it quickly, I mean, can you imagine if they even dumped 5% right now?
Yeah, they have 9.
Because if I recall correctly, Bitfarms doesn't trade a lot. There wasn't a lot of activity on the stock. There's just not a lot of activity on Bitfarms.
Let's look at their volume. Yeah, it's not like the big dogs. So 21 million shares a day.
Yeah, so
today was low volume, 12 million.
Right.
This is what I'm saying. We've been drifting down on low volume. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, but if you double that, let's just say he doubles that. Jason decides, you know what, screw them. Because they haven't even started to do that. You know that, right, Tom? They haven't even.
They continue to buy.
5%. Right.
They
up to the 19.9, but they can sell, is what I'm saying. And there's not a lot of people buying Bitfarms institutional wise. That's the problem. I mean, we looked at the top. If you don't have the top two,
right,
the same as everybody else, there's not a lot of people buying it. That's just how it is.
That's right. The big dogs, BlackRock and Vanguard, are not in Bitfarms yet, and that's
right.
So there's less buying pressure for that reason. To your point, as you said, the big dogs. If we go to the list here, Investco, the top holders at 4%, and the second place is at 1.4. Now, obviously, this does not include the fact that Riot, this is institutional holders. Riot is the largest shareholder at 19.9, call it 20%. But conspicuously absent from this list is BlackRock and Vanguard that are at the top of almost every other list in the stock market.
I know, which is crazy.
So to me, I'm holding out. That's good news, bad news, because ultimately, I believe. Go ahead, George.
I think there's something else going on with Jason in this attempted buyout, by the way. I think it's more devious than we even know, and hostile takeovers usually are. And I don't think it's over with by any stretch of imagination.
You think there's more drama to follow in this saga?
Yes.
Yeah, and this meeting isn't until, I think we looked, October 29th, I think, was the day of that meeting. So, we're not even going to get. So you're right. There's more to come, and there's more we don't know.
Think about it. And Stronghold remember, there's no way to stop if the Stronghold stockholders vote for the buyout, then they're going to be part of Bitfarms even before Ben gets the chance. I mean, even before Jason gets the chance to go in front of the board.
Right. And that was a part of Riot's letter is, hey, wait a second. We're the biggest shareholder here. You're making a major purchase, in the middle of a situation. And, so that was a part of Riot's letter was, they don't have the authorization to cease and desist, but essentially they asked them, you should not be making major purchases while we're in the middle of this, without consulting your largest shareholder and while we're in the middle of, what sounds like hostile non-conversations.
Interesting, Tom, because this ends up in court any way you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be. And it is, I mean, if they end up parting ways, you are right. There's going to be some selling pressure when a 20% shareholder, right? Riot's not going to walk away and still hold Bitfarm stock.
20%, right.
Now, if they're smart as a Riot shareholder, I certainly would not want them to dump it at a discount and, get destroyed on it, but they could do it out of spite. But if they do, I will consider that a buying opportunity and probably buy more Bitfarms. That's just me.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the good news is, though, it keeps the microscope off of Jason, and that's what he's been trying to do with this whole thing.
Well, that's a part of it, right? I mean, and that's what I've always said. Man, if they focus on what they're doing, they have
Yeah.
Huge plans. They have massive infrastructure they've built out. They've got a business model of their own. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. That was the last thing on my list. I am too. Thank you, George. Cool. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Special thanks to the members, and thank you to everybody for joining us. Thanks for all the likes. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. Go Bitcoin.